You ask me some stupid like that, go yourself.
Don't dehumanize me up here. I can post whatever I want.
Why did top athletes across sports get so heated with reporters? Are they standing up for free speech or simply tired of media agendas? Let's look at these powerful moments where athletes clapped back at woke questions and refused to back down. From MMA's Sean Strickland to NBA's Kyrie Irving, these athletes are turning the tables on media narratives, and you don't want to miss these intense exchanges. In today's world, where every word is dissected, athletes are increasingly under the spotlight, not only for their performance on the field, but also for their personal views. Reporters often bring up social issues like LGBTQ+, gender pay gaps, or racial representation during interviews, sometimes catching athletes off guard. Many athletes feel that these questions are less about their work and more about pushing a particular narrative. This has led to some intense and memorable confrontations with reporters. In this video, we'll look at some of the most powerful examples of athletes shutting down woke questions. From outright refusals to answer to counter-arguments that flip the script, these athletes sent a strong message that they're here to play their game, not play into media agendas. Sean Strickland versus Canadian reporter on LGBTQ+ and trans issues UFC fighter Sean Strickland was involved in a tense exchange with a Canadian reporter who questioned him about his past comments on the LGBTQ+ community.
We've got a pretty supportive gay and lesbian community in this city. I did want to ask you about something you wrote a couple of years ago. You said, if I had a gay son, I would think I'd...
Oh, look, another, I'm saying to you, the swamp, you guys, the swamp.
You become a champion, you become a star, and someone says...
Let me ask you something. Are you gay?
Have you had the chance to interact with a more diverse...
Let me know, are you gay?
Can I get an answer?
Well, no, I'm asking, this is a part of, are you a gay man?
I'm an ally of the community.
Okay. If you had a son and he was like, you had a son, he was gay, you'd be like, oh man, you don't want a grandkid?
No problem with it.
Oh man, well, dude, you're a weak man, dude.
The reporter seemed to be pushing Strickland to clarify or apologize for his social media statements, but Strickland wasn't having it. Known for his unfiltered personality, he quickly redirected the conversation, pointing out that a UFC event was not the place for discussing political topics. Instead of answering the question, Strickland asked the reporter directly, "Are you gay?" When the reporter responded that he was an ally of the LGBTQ+ community, Strickland accused him of lacking a backbone for focusing on social issues instead of sports. The conversation escalated when the reporter brought up Strickland's comments about a transgender influencer's sponsorship by Bud Light.
So things you said about the trans community. You said this past October when they announced the Bud Light sponsorship that you'd go so hard on Bud Light in your next fight, they'll have to accept me or denounce me.
Strickland didn't back down, arguing that mainstream culture had shifted too far in recent years and that certain narratives were being pushed despite a lack of widespread support. He emphasized that the focus at a UFC event should be on athletic performance, not social issues. This exchange quickly went viral, with viewers divided on Strickland's response. Some supported him for staying true to his beliefs and defending the integrity of sports, while others criticized his stance as unprofessional and offensive. Ultimately, this moment underscored the growing tension between athletes, media, and the increasingly politicized nature of sports coverage. It raised questions about whether interviews should focus on performance or extend into discussions of broader social issues. In the same heated interview, Strickland expanded his criticism to broader societal issues.
Here's the thing about Bud Light. 10 years ago, to be trans was a mental illness. And now all of a sudden, people like you have weaseled your way into the world. You are an infection. The world is not saying, you know what? You're right. Chicks have dicks. The world's not saying that. The world's saying, no, there are two genders. I don't want my kids being taught about, who they could school. I don't want my kids being taught about, their sexual preference.
Particularly the role of education in promoting certain ideologies. He voiced his concerns over children being taught about sexual preference at a young age, arguing that such discussions should be left to parents. Strickland's frustration was evident as he accused the reporter of pushing a forced narrative and claimed that Canadian society was stifling free speech in favor of progressive values. Strickland's comments struck a chord with many viewers, especially those who shared his belief that sports should remain focused on athleticism, not social and political issues. He argued that media should stop pushing agendas and instead focus on the athlete's performance. His comments resonated with fans who feel that political correctness has taken over public discourse, including sports. This confrontation highlighted a deeper cultural divide, with Strickland taking a firm stance against what he saw as the intrusion of identity politics into sports. For him, athletes should not be forced to address social issues during interviews, especially in the context of their athletic careers. While some felt Strickland's words were confrontational, his blunt approach stood out as a reminder of the tension between sport sports, media, and the broader societal issues that often seep into athletic coverage. Following Sean Strickland's viral interview, Dana White, UFC's CEO, was asked the next day about his company's approach to leashing fighters and allowing them free speech. The reporter inquired about the UFC's stance on comments that some could interpret as homophobic or transphobic.
You were talking about, like, you obviously give a long leash to your fighters about, what they can say when they are up there with the UFC microphone, and you are getting into territory of homophobia, transphobia. Like, is there...
I don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash?
like...
Free speech. I control what people say. Gonna tell people what to believe. Gonna tell people... I don't fucking tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes.
And whether there should be limits on what fighters like Strickland can publicly say. White's response was swift and unyielding, reaffirming his support for free speech. He emphasized that the UFC doesn't give leashes or limit fighters' expressions of belief. "I don't tell any other human being what to say, what to think," White stated, pointing out that within UFC, athletes are permitted to voice their opinions without fear of retribution. His stance stands in stark contrast to other major sports leagues, which often discipline players for expressing controversial views that don't align with the league's image or policies. White's stance also opened up dialogue about the freedom athletes should have in expressing personal beliefs, even if they spark controversy. In this instance, White defended the core principle of free speech in the UFC, refusing to impose restrictions or leashes on athletes. His response resonated with viewers who feel that athletes should be free to speak their minds, regardless of public backlash. White's stance highlighted the UFC's distinct approach, one that supports its fighters' right to be authentic and unfiltered, even in today's increasingly sensitive social climate. White's remarks left the reporter momentarily speechless, capturing an element of the free speech debate that often sparks strong reactions. Unlike leagues that prioritize image management, White's UFC allows fighters to speak freely, empowering them to maintain individuality in an era where many sports organizations emphasize conformity. Fans were quick to rally behind White, applauding his commitment to respecting athletes' freedom and ensuring that fighters have a platform where their voices aren't suppressed. In another eye-opening moment, NFL coach Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers addressed a reporter's question.
You and Mike Tomlin are two of the few black head coaches in the league. I wonder what your relationship is like with them and your thoughts on Steve Wilks joining that fold.
I have a very good relationship with Tomlin. We don't look at what color we are when we coach against each other. We just know each other. I have a lot of very good white friends that coach in this league as well, and I don't think it's a big deal as far as us coaching against each other. I think it's normal. Wilks got an opportunity to do a good job. Hopefully he does it. And we coach ball. We don't look at color.
But you also understand that representation matters too, right? And that when young aspiring coaches or even football players, they see you guys, they see someone that looks like them, maybe grew up like them, that has to mean something.
Well, when you say you see you guys and look like them and grow up like them, means that we're oddballs to begin with. And I think the minute you guys stop making a big deal about it, everybody else will as well.
That seemed to draw a connection between his race and his relationships with other black coaches in the NFL. The reporter asked Bowles about his relationship with Pittsburgh Steelers coach Mike Tomlin, implying that, as one of the few black head coaches in the league, he might share a unique bond with Tomlin. Bowles, however, was quick to deflect, emphasizing that he doesn't view relationships in terms of race. "We don't look at what color we are against each other," Bowles responded, adding that he has a lot of very good white friends in the league as well. His response underlined a discomfort with being grouped based on race, and instead promoted a perspective focused on professional unity rather than racial identity. Bowles' words resonated with many viewers who appreciated his rejection of a racially charged narrative, opting instead to focus on respect and equality in his relationships with other coaches. The reporter then pushed further, suggesting that representation matters and might inspire young people of similar backgrounds. Bowles, however, wasn't convinced. "I think the minute you guys stop making a big deal about it, everybody else will as well," he replied, flipping the question back on the media's tendency to draw attention to racial factors. His response sparked widespread praise on social media, where users commended him for not allowing race to define his professional relationships. This moment underscores the sometimes tenuous relationship between media narratives on representation and the lived experiences of those being represented. Bowles' approach demonstrated an alternative viewpoint on the role of identity in professional sports, one that places merit and mutual respect above race. His calm yet pointed response stands as a a reminder of the complexities involved when discussing representation, race, and professional dynamics in modern sports. Tennis champion Rafael Nadal was asked about the gender pay gap in sports, a topic that has sparked significant debate in recent years. When questioned, Nadal offered a straightforward perspective.
¿No ocurre? ¿Qué opinión te merece que las mujeres cobren menos que los hombres en el tenis y que en qué crees que se basa esa desigualdad? Gracias.
Pues no lo sé. No sé en qué se basa en el fútbol, o en el golf, o en el modelaje. No sé. ¿Por qué las mujeres ganan más que los hombres en el tema de la moda? Pues no lo sé.
He believes that earnings in professional sports should be directly proportional to the revenue each athlete generates. According to Nadal, this principle applies to both male and female athletes. He further explained that in many industries, including modeling, women often earn more than men due to market demand, but few protest those pay disparities. Nadal's response pointed to the underlying economic factors that drive salary structures in sports, where earnings are largely dependent on factors like ticket sales, viewership, and sponsorships. He acknowledged the efforts of female tennis players to advocate for equal pay, but maintained that market-driven pay differences are not inherently unfair. Nadal's position is aligned with a revenue-based model, where athletes' compensation reflects their financial contribution to the sport. While some critics argue that pay equity should transcend economic factors, supporters of Nadal's view contend that it's fair for pay to correlate with financial performance. His comments also resonate with broader debates about pay equity across sectors, where economic realities and ethical considerations often clash. Nadal's perspective suggests that sports, as entertainment businesses, operate within a profit-driven framework. The response sparked mixed reactions, with some praising Nadal's practicality and others calling for a more equity-focused approach in sports compensation. Jordan Peterson's views on equality, particularly his distinction between equality of opportunity and equality of outcome, have been influential in debates on social justice. Peterson advocates for equality of opportunity, where individuals are given the same starting conditions, but opposes enforced equality of outcome, where everyone receives the same results regardless of effort. He argues that while equal access is essential for fairness, outcomes should depend on individual effort, ability, and perseverance. Peterson's concept has gained traction among those who believe that enforcing equal outcomes undermines motivation and personal accountability. In this view, a society that rewards hard work with better outcomes fosters ambition and innovation, while one that mandates equal outcomes might discourage effort. Critics argue that systemic factors often hinder equal opportunity, making it harder for some to compete on an even playing field. Peterson's stance has become a cornerstone for those opposing certain progressive policies, especially in education and employment, that seek to level outcomes. His argument resonates with individuals who view work ethic as a primary determinant of success. Supporters feel that society should focus on providing opportunities while allowing natural differences in outcome based on effort and capability. This perspective has fueled discussions on meritocracy, as it challenges the notion that equal results are a fair measure of equality. Former UFC champion Ronda Rousey was asked about the gender pay gap in sports, specifically in the UFC.
Just another quick one about Angela's question on equality just before. We've got quite a large pay dispute happening with our Australian women's soccer team at the moment. Is it frustrating for you as someone who's so prominent in your sport? And we heard you say on the Ellen Show the other day you are the richest fighter in UFC, that sort of thing is still going on?
I think that how much you get paid should have something to do with how much money you bring in. I'm the highest paid fighter, not because Dana and Lorenzo wanted to do something nice for the ladies. They do it because I bring in the highest numbers. They do it because I make them the most money. And I think that the money that they make should be proportionate to the money that they bring in.
You've expressed interest in liking superheroes, and a lot of Hollywood is coming out that the representation is very over-sexualized. What do you think about the portrayal in media
of superheroes?
Superhero
women?
Yeah.
I mean, the guys have like 16 packs. I mean, it's very much like an over-idealized idea of what, a human being should be. And so, I think that the male superheroes are overly masculinized and, you know, the women are overly feminized. And, you know, I think that's just part of like the whole superhero universe, really.
Where male and female fighters' earnings often differ. When questioned, Rousey provided a clear-cut response. She is the highest paid fighter in the UFC, not because UFC executives Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta are making a social statement, but because she brings in the highest revenue. Rousey emphasized that earnings should be proportional to the financial impact athletes bring to the organization. Her stance underscores a pragmatic approach to compensation in sports, where business realities often determine pay scales. Rousey's comments reflect her belief in a revenue-based model, where an athlete's income correlates directly with the revenue they generate. She views her pay as a reflection of her market appeal and accomplishments rather than her gender, positioning herself as a top earner through her fan base and fight performances. This viewpoint suggests that gender pay differences are not inherently unjust if they align with financial contributions to the sport, a stance that has sparked both support and criticism. While some advocates push for equal pay across genders as a matter of fairness, Rousey's response reflects a perspective that considers the economic structure of professional sports. Supporters of her viewpoint argue that, like other entertainment industries, sports are driven by market demand and fan interest, which naturally affects income. Rousey's perspective not only sparked further conversations about gender pay equity, but also highlighted the business-centric nature of athlete compensation in competitive sports. In a separate interview, Rousey was asked about her thoughts on the alleged over-sexualization of female superheroes, a topic that has garnered significant attention in Hollywood and beyond. Her response was both humorous and insightful. She argued that both male and female superheroes are equally idealized. Male superheroes are often portrayed with exaggerated musculature and 16-packs, while female superheroes are depicted with pronounced femininity. Rousey's point underscored that exaggeration is a core part of the superhero genre, transcending gender to create an idealized portrayal of strength and beauty. Rousey's comments emphasized that both male and female superheroes are unrealistic, reflecting an ideal rather than reality. In this view, superheroes embody exaggerated traits that appeal to audiences' sense of adventure and escapism, irrespective of gender. By pointing out the over-masculinization of male heroes, she subtly challenged the notion that female superheroes alone are hypersexualized, reframing the discussion to include both genders. Her response resonated with fans and followers, particularly those who feel that modern media can sometimes overemphasize social critique at the expense of the art form itself. Rousey's perspective highlights the superhero genre as a space where fantasy and exaggeration are essential, suggesting that both male and female characters are equally unrealistic in their physical portrayals. The moment sparked discussions on the broader implications of character design and gender representation, prompting audiences to consider whether both male and female characters are equally idealized. NBA star Kyrie Irving found himself in the media spotlight after sharing a post about a controversial movie that allegedly contained offensive content. When asked to explain his motives for sharing the film,
well, then do you, I guess, understand or not understand those that might imply that that work had anti-Semitic leanings in it? I only ask this because the tweet is still up there, so I
We're in 2022. It's on Amazon, a public platform. Whether you want to go watch it or not is up to you. There's things being posted every day. I am no different than the next human being, so don't treat me any different.
Follow up on the promotion of the movie and the book.
Can you please stop calling it a promotion? What am I promoting?
Put it out on your platform.
But I'm promoting it? Do you see me doing, do you see me in front of
putting it out there,
the
people
title?
are going to say that you are
Yeah, I
promoting.
put it out there just like you put things out there, right?
Yeah, but
okay.
It's not
you put
stuff,
things out there for a living, right?
Right, but my stuff is not
so let's move on.
filled
let's
with
move on.
anti-Semitic
Let's
stuff.
move on. Don't dehumanize me up here.
Irving expressed frustration with the media's scrutiny. He argued that as an individual, he has the right to post content of his choosing without being subjected to assumptions about his intentions or beliefs. Irving's stance reflects his desire to be seen as a private citizen with freedom of expression, regardless of his public status. Irving's response sparked intense debate around an athlete's right to share personal beliefs on social media. He expressed frustration with the media's focus on this single post, asserting that the movie was available on public platforms and he was not promoting any particular message. Irving's statements touched on a broader societal issue as many public figures grapple with how their online presence is interpreted, often under intense public scrutiny. For Irving, the insistence that he was promoting the content seemed an overreach as he argued for a distinction between personal posts and endorsements. This incident raises significant questions about athletes' autonomy on social media, where their posts can carry carry unintended implications due to their influence. Supporters of Irving's stance argue that, as with any individual, he should have the right to express personal interests without excessive judgment. Critics, however, contend that public figures bear responsibility for the impact of their actions. Irving's defense of his freedom to post without restriction contributes to an ongoing dialogue on the limits and responsibilities tied to celebrity influence in the digital age. Russian MMA champion Khabib Nurmagomedov brought humor and insight when asked by businessman Patrick Bet-David about the number of genders recognized in Russia.
A very technical question for you. I know you're a math guy, and this one may be a tough question for you. If you're uncomfortable answering this one, I'm totally okay with that. In America, we have a few hundred genders. How many genders do you guys have in Russia? Just very. I know you're a math guy. That's why I'm asking. I think maybe there's a.
Like. Here is like I see only women and men. There is no between.
Got it.
No between. It's crazy. It's like first time in my life, couple weeks ago, and I was in California. I was like on coffee shop. It's like I really want to go bathroom. It's like, can I go bathroom? Okay, they told me code, and I'm coming like 2 bedroom, all gender. It's like, what is this? Where I have to go? First time I said, like, I stopped, like, I stayed like 5 seconds there, like, where's woman, where's man? I locked the door. Anybody inside? It's like, okay. It's like, I don't know, but I grew up in very traditional place, with very traditional family. I'm very happy with this. Like, I am from big mountains, and we have only 2 genders.
Nurmagomedov, who hails from a traditional background, simply replied that he only recognized 2 genders, man and woman, consistent with his upbringing. His answer reflects a cultural perspective rooted in traditional views, which contrasts starkly with the broader acceptance of non-binary and gender-diverse identities in some parts of the world, particularly in the United States. Nurmagomedov then shared an anecdote about his experience in a California coffee shop with all-gender bathrooms, a novelty for him. He humorously described his initial confusion upon encountering the setup, highlighting the cultural differences between his home country and the U.S. His story resonated with audiences, illustrating the personal and sometimes amusing challenges of adapting to unfamiliar cultural norms. For Nurmagomedov, who grew up in a conservative environment in the mountains of Dagestan, these differences were more than just unfamiliar. They felt at odds with his entire upbringing. Nurmagomedov's reaction to the concept of multiple genders and gender-neutral bathrooms provides a candid example of cultural contrast, highlighting how perspectives on gender can vary dramatically across societies. His humorous storytelling allowed audiences to glimpse the personal experience of culture shock from a traditionalist viewpoint. This moment serves as a reminder of the vast diversity of cultural beliefs around gender and identity, underscoring the value of empathy and understanding in today's increasingly globalized society. These examples reveal the increasing tension between athletes and reporters over social issues. While some view these questions as part of modern journalism, athletes are pushing back, defending their right to focus on their professions without being drawn into controversial debates. These moments are shaping a new narrative around athletes' right to personal opinions and have sparked widespread support for their refusal to back down. If you enjoyed these moments, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree with these athletes standing up for their beliefs, or do you think there's a balance to be found? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on more fascinating stories from the world of sports.